The Fujicast is an independent loading zone production.
Kev is quickly realising that this radio malarkey, or podcast malarkey, takes up more time than you otherwise thought. 5:30 this morning, Kev, wasn't it, your world?
Yeah, 5:30. I now know what it's like to be you.
There's no photography. There's no time for photography. You can't pay your bills. You've just got to do radio, Kev.
Yeah.
It's consuming. What do we mean by this? We should probably explain. If you have been on a different planet or not been listening to the podcast, which is very plausible over the last couple of weeks, Kev started a radio show, and it's an internet radio show. It's a country music radio show. And last week he made what I would. Kev, you should have talked to me about this. He made the fateful mistake of doing what?
Well, I've run out of all of my favourite songs, which I knew I would. I played them all too soon, and so I said, right, it's your turn. Send me your requests.
Yeah.
And they did, in fairness.
Yeah.
All 6 listeners sent me a couple of songs each. And apart from, honestly, my mum sent me some terrible choices. Anna McCarthy sent me some nice ones. I've got stuff in the show from Steve Vaughan, Anna McCarthy, Denver, Aubrey, Murray McMillan.
Yeah.
Rob Ward, Layla, Josephine. All kinds of people are going to be in there, but... I'm going to put a disclaimer out at the beginning. These are not my choices.
Did your mum choose good ones? You can't not play your mum's ones.
No, my mum, bless her. My mum picked Cotton Eye Joe.
Right.
So that's not going to be in it. And then she picked another one that's I'd rather murder kittens.
Okay. What song?
Carl Hare picked a 9-minute song.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Not going to make the cut either, I'm afraid, Carl.
Yeah. Is it an all request show for this particular one?
Today is, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's all requests. Oh, okay.
It's all requests, yeah. And I need to do it properly this time because I keep getting my timings completely wrong.
Oh,
it's very hard. I don't know how you used to do it.
What you need to do is have what's called an emergency song. The emergency song is always one that's now. What was it? It was 2 minutes 11. There She Goes. I'm sure it was There She Goes by the Lars.
It's not very country, that though, is it?
No, it's not country, I know, but you need to find your country versions of it. Delamitri, Roll to Me, the Lars, There She Goes. Oh, I think there was one by the band Dodgy that was quite short as well. They are your emergency songs. So when you know that you've overrun it and you just need a song that's 1 minute 58 seconds, you go for your emergency song.
It's not overrunning it, it's underrunning it.
Oh,
my problem is I like to end with 2. I do a little I call it the festival section at the end, where it's 2 live tracks that kind of blend into one. Last week I was ready to play it and it lasted 6 minutes 4 seconds. And I had 14 minutes to go.
When
I had to stick in a couple of bangers.
I always remember John Peel ending a show. I remember listening to him ending woefully early and having some sort of disaster with the turntable, and he just sat there and just tapped his fingers for about 2 minutes.
The Fujicast.
And I thought, well, that's authentic. He got my vote that day. It's going well though, your show, isn't it, Kev?
I'm loving it.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
Yeah, it does take a little bit longer to prepare than you thought, I think.
Yeah, well, the prep is all right. The listening to the music is what takes time.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. And we have a bit of an announcement this week, actually, with regard to the podcast for next week. You and your questions today from our electronic mailbag, and of course, also through the Fujicast private Facebook group that you are welcome to become a member of. If you'd like to send your questions, you can do it through that, or indeed through the email, old-fashioned styly. Click at fujicast.co.uk. If you are not a Fujifilm shooter, do not worry. It's a big community, and whatever flavour you shoot, you're very, very welcome. Do we have some bump to the fronts this week, Kev? We got some, or are you going to be doing that next week?
You deal with those.
And so, no, I mean the mention of the patrons is what I mentioned.
Oh yeah,
I've got some bump to the front.
Yeah, we've got a couple of them. Yeah.
And today we are. Well, what's the book of the week? First of all, before I announce who's with us.
So the book of the week is the package that turned up a couple of weeks ago when Harry the postman turned up at the door and he said there was a parcel missing.
It did show in the end because initially you thought you'd lost it, didn't you? Somebody walked off with it or something.
Yeah, turns out it was at the butcher's. But yes, so the book of the week is. It's simply called Belgian.
The book was at the butcher's.
The book was at the butcher's, yeah. I'll explain it when we get to it, but it's by Stefan Vanfleteren.
Oh, good.
Belgium. Yeah,
fantastic. And Alex Frederickson, you spoke to during the week, is our guest. One of our friends of the show guests.
Mm-hmm.
So, next week, by the way, talking of radio shows and solo and duets, Kev's going solo next week.
Dun dun dun. You're on a well-earned break.
Solo flight. Yeah, I've got next week off the Fujicast. That is, I've got next week off the Fujicast, and Kev is on. Are we allowed to say he's presenting it with you?
No, because it might just be me.
All right,
it's either going to be me and Monty, me and Breezy, or me and somebody else.
Okay, I think Monty would be great.
Oh, you'd be able to smell him over the airwaves.
Yes, well, not smell-o-vision, smellicast or whatever. Right, questions. You going first or me?
Let's do the patrons first.
Okay, patrons
first. We've got a couple of them.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for supporting us on Patreon. These are the latest people. We've got Ronan Palliser from Ireland, Kant Ratwood, Joshua Rothman, Eric Joseph, and Ivan Creeth. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, they're all guys, I think. Yeah, so I can say that without getting in trouble. Well done. Thank you so much. Every penny counts. Ding, ding.
I think somebody's already got that phrase, Kev. I'm not sure he can use that one.
Oh.
Mike Miller sent in a message, but it was more a comment, and I'm sure you've seen this. Mike is very much our underlining friend. I tell you what, he would be the researcher, because he gets everything spot on. As clarification to a statement made at 25 minutes and 30 seconds into this will be last week's podcast. We were talking about rules for photography, weren't we? And I think Canada was mentioned, wasn't it, as having...
Yeah.
Rules for photography can vary from province to province in Canada. In Ontario, the rules governing photographers is nicely summed up. He sent a PDF document that will... I hope I'll remember to give you the link to put in the show notes. It was all to do with privacy, wasn't it, and being able to photograph people in the street. The laws have to do with reasonable expectation of privacy. Photographing outdoors is okay because nobody can expect to have a reasonable expectation of privacy. And do you know what, Kev? I hope that is going to be the way that this is dealt with around the world, because that seems a very sensible way in which to deal with street photography, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal for quite a lot of places. Yeah. That's what it is in the UK as well. If you're in the public place, then all systems go, kind of thing.
Yeah. He says photographing indoors is a different matter. The right to publish photographs is protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Section 2B. So, as you say, it's probably a very similar thing. I've never read it in this country and other countries. But there's a push over on YouTube, not having anybody who can be recognised showing up in somebody's film. But it's still in the infancy stage. Now, I did see this, and we both saw this because we had a little grumble at it, didn't we? And it does look, reading it as it is in black and white, it looks like you can't have a film of somebody unless they've given you express permission that they can appear in it. Or am I wrong?
Well, I think that's the direction they're going. Yeah, so it seems that way. That's my understanding as well. So we may be off the mark. I don't know, but certainly that's what it said in the YouTube email that I got. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to pan out in terms of. Well, I mean, imagine just wedding videographers who use YouTube to promote their films. What are you going to do? Ask every single person? Street photography will just disappear off YouTube. I don't know. It's the world's gone absolute crazy. It's just insane. Stupid.
It does seem very much covering your backside dictate that, doesn't it? Really, if that's the way it's going to go. I mean, if you look at stuff, just one of our favourite YouTubers, Peter McKinnon. I mean, a lot of his films have people in the background. I suppose now it'll just be him. Quite often it is him at his desk in Canada. Maybe that's why. Maybe he saw this coming, Kev.
Yeah, well, and also, the thing with it all is that you just said it does seem like a catch-all situation, but Google have got history with that. So the whole made for kids or not made for kids toggle on the YouTube videos that came out, I don't know, about 18 months ago, I suppose. That covers all bases. So basically, you have to say, the kids may watch this or they may not watch it. I noticed that on some of my videos, which are photo films of my own kids, YouTube have switched the comments off. Right. They've switched comments off by themselves. They didn't even tell me. They just switched them off. And when I looked and thought, hang on, there's no comments on here. There were comments. Dug a bit deeper, and YouTube said, yeah, we've switched this off because there's children in the video.
Blimey.
I'm like, yeah, they're my kids.
They're your kids, and you gave permission.
So are they going to just you know, how can they possibly legislate it? How can they, how can they control that? Every single time a video goes online and they identify that there's people in the video, are you then going to have to fill a form in with all the names of everybody in there? And, it's just, I don't know. They're shooting themselves in the foot, I think, with that.
Is it sucking the fun out of YouTube for you?
The fun was sucked out of YouTube when that bloke had to go at my eyes and my eyebrows and my teeth.
Well, that was a bit personal. Yeah, that's true.
I suppose a little bit. I mean, I haven't put anything on YouTube for a while, basically because I haven't had anything to put on there. And I'm looking at my little YouTube area over there, looking all lonely in the corner of the room, and I don't have any kind of ambition to sit there again and make a film, because it's just tough.
I guess YouTube's going to become a bit more like, in some respects, it's going to need to become a bit more like solo presentations to camera, isn't it? It's going to be like going to a board meeting, Kev, on Zoom.
Yeah. I mean, it seems very weird that Google are doing this, because Vimeo won't do it. I'm sure of it, and they're in the same jurisdiction. So I don't know. I feel like Google are the number one target by the lawyers around the world, aren't they? They get Google, Apple, Microsoft, all the big wigs. They get all the anti-privacy people on their backs all of the time. And actually, generally, they're all good companies. They're all trying to make the best out of things. They're not going to purposely do enable stuff that can make things difficult for people. But other people, especially anti-privacy stuff, try and make it difficult for them, and then we all suffer.
Tricky one, this. Thank you, Mike, for your clarification over those points. Right. Questions, Kev.
Okay, so I've got a question from Neil Parry, and he says, it's quite a long one. He says, being that you both photograph weddings, I wanted to ask your thoughts on the subjects of the infamous Uncle Bob. I photographed several. All Uncle Bobs sound like that, by the way.
Do they?
Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob.
I photographed several weddings where a guest bought a camera, and for the most part, it's been easy to navigate. And in some cases, I've even included them, allowing them to photograph a family shot I might have set up. However, I recently had a Uncle Bob. In this case, literally the uncle of the bride. And he was so relentless, and he was in my way, that I and the bride had to pull him outside during the course of the wedding and remind him that he was obstructing the paid professional. It apparently fell on deaf ears, as I see him in way too many of my shots from the day, standing in the aisle as the bride walks down, for example. Do you guys have any Uncle Bob stories? And what have you found the best way to deal with an overly aggressive Uncle Bob?
Was he aggressive then?
Obviously aggressive in terms of where he was.
Yeah, okay. I was looking through your website the other day, and I saw an Auntie Bob. It was at that wedding that I was filming you, I think. You were using the...
Oh, yeah.
And there was somebody stood at the back in a lot of your shots. And when I first saw it, I thought, I don't recall there being another videographer there or something, because I think I was the only person filming, and I was filming you.
Yeah.
And then there was this person at the back all the time, and I thought, oh, and they seem to be in a lot of shots.
I remember that very well, actually, because I remember when we were at the wedding, I remember seeing her, and what went through my mind was, oh well, Neil's going to be in all her pictures.
Probably was, yeah. Well, if she's in front of mine, I'm in front of hers. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Honestly, my take on it is I have had a couple of situations where I've kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit at them, but it's never been too much of an issue. And to be honest with you, my attitude is, look, if somebody stands in the aisle when the bride's walking down it, then that's what the picture's going to be. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Of course, you don't want that to happen, but that's the way it is. And I think the people that do more formal stuff and group stuff probably have more of a problem with it, in terms of people shooting over their shoulders and what have you. You've got eyes pointing in different directions then, haven't you?
I think you can use the proclamation method here. And so if you are, because many photographers are doing some more formal shots. I know I do a few myself, as you know, with the groups and stuff like that. And what I tend to do, because it's happening, don't you, Kev? They're hovering around you, and you think, all right, okay, click, 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 click. And you can see, as you rightly say, there's wandering eyes as well. So I normally make a loud proclamation. So, and I'm a devil at doing it as well. And I don't mind it, because I think it gets the job done. That I will say, not overly loudly, so it's ridiculous, but I will say, ladies and gents, sorry, what's your name? Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob's going to take his pictures now, so don't look at me. This is not about me this moment. This is all about Uncle Bob. let Uncle Bob get all his pictures, then he's going to let us do ours, aren't you, Uncle Bob? Yeah? Cool. Mm-hmm. Proclamation.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, and then he feels he can't keep doing it.
I normally just, on occasions when I've got people on, group shots and there's people kind of shooting over my shoulder, especially with mobile phones and things like that. And, if there's kids in there and it's not their kids, they're all there with their phones, Georgie, look at me. I just put my camera down by my side and just stare at the group and, and then, and I just wait until they've finished.
Yeah.
And then I say, right, okay, now it's my turn, and just get on with it. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, Uncle Bob is a thing, of course it is, but I just try and make it part of the story in the candid element of it, and then just ignore it elsewhere. It's
after a while they lose their they should. It sounds like you had an experience there where you didn't, but usually they lose their interest after a while, don't they, Kev? And they sort of toddle off and go and stand at the bar and have another pint.
Yeah, usually. And I remember one occasion, actually, it was quite a high-end wedding, and the bride had emailed me previously and said that a friend, they weren't having any formals whatsoever, it was 100% doc, and she emailed me about 2 days before the wedding. She said, a friend of her mum's wants to be a wedding photographer, and would you mind if she she asked you some questions on the day and maybe took a few pictures?
Warning.
I said, no, that's fine. So when I got there, she introduced herself and everything. She was good as gold. And then later in the day, I found I kind of wandered into this part of their 20,000 acre garden, and she was doing these group shots with all the family. Mm-hmm. And I said to the bride later, I said, now tell me, is that why you invited her? And she said, yeah. Brilliant. So she did me a favor as well. But yeah, she was good. She was fine, actually. Didn't cause, I had a nice chat with her and everything. She drove away in a Lamborghini. I drove away in my Kia. And that was it.
I turned up at an event like that recently. Everybody had a Bentley in the. It seemed like everybody had a Bentley. It's not quite true, but certainly my Kia parked between a Bentley and one of those huge BMW 4-wheel drives, top of the range one. I parked in there, Kev.
X1.
With mine was all covered in mud, hadn't been washed for 4 weeks.
Yeah, mine stinks of horse.
There we go. Right, Richard Needham. Hello, gents. Love the podcast. 2 quick questions for you. Will Fuji ever enable their cameras to save the 2/10 second self-timer selection? What's that? Sorry? Save the 2/10 second self-timer selection so that it works by default when the camera's turned on?
No, so what he's asking is that there's a self-timer option in the cameras where you can choose 2 seconds or 10 seconds.
Oh, 2
and
or
then
10. Right.
Run around in front of the camera and get yourself in the picture. And
I didn't know how long that was because I've never used it.
Yeah, I very rarely. I have used it on occasions, but very, very rarely.
Okay.
I didn't know. Well, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I assumed that it would just keep it. I don't know. So I can only imagine it's quite an easy thing for them to change if it is the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what it defaults to. Perhaps it defaults to 2 seconds. Perhaps it defaults to 10 seconds.
It's not long enough, is it? 2 seconds for a self-timer. Quick, run!
Yeah. Yeah. Don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of the reasons why they haven't done that, and the only thing I can come up with is if the default is 2 seconds, that's easier to wait and kind of change. Whereas if the default's 10 seconds and you're trying to get an important shot or something, and you've pressed it and it's 10 seconds and you didn't want it to be 10 seconds, you've got to wait 10 seconds before you can change it again. So maybe there's that logic in there somewhere. We shall consider.
I've seen a lot. Yeah, we shall consider. Well, I've seen a lot more people doing self-portrait projects of late. Kara Mew, who was on a few weeks ago on this podcast, and then appeared on Photography Daily as well recently to sort of talk about some more of the subjects that we tackled first time around. And she's amazing when she does hers. And,
I've seen loads of it as well. Even Big Bert Stefani's in on the game.
Is Bert Stefani doing it?
Yeah, it's in all over Facebook, just his face.
Oh.
So I've deleted Facebook now.
Poor Bert. You ever interested you, Kev?
Good God, no! Frighten myself when I look in the mirror.
I tell you what, I do miss. I miss those running shots of you on the running machine.
Yeah.
How's your back? And we shouldn't laugh because your back and your hip are not too good at the moment, are they?
Oh, I'm just an old man. I'm giving up. I told Gemma the other day, that's it. I'm gonna fall into old manhood. Yeah. I'm gonna get fat and ugly, and you can have to live with it.
What did she say?
She said, I'd love you forever.
Oh.
It doesn't matter what you look like. I said, that's good, but don't you have the same attitude?
Oh, Kev, Both way round. But Gemma could never look at anything more than just heavenly, could she?
No comment.
And Rich had another part of... can I call you Rich? Richard Needham. Another question, second part. And with new sensors being discussed for X-H2, X-T5 et al., do you think there will be an increase in aspect ratio options? We'd love to see a 5:4, for example. Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I would think, I really have no idea what will happen with the next set of sensors, but if they're bigger, which physically APS-C, I believe, is at the end of is at the maximum it can get to. Although there is this kind of Sony APS-C sensor kicking around, which I think is like 36 gigapixels or megapixels. So maybe if they can get the sensor bigger, then they can do a little bit more format sizing, because ultimately it's just cropping off the sensor. So one of the things that I've lobbied them for a while is to have different overlays for the crops in the camera. So not necessarily formats, but instead of just the rule of thirds, have like the Fibonacci spiral, things like that.
Yeah, you mentioned this. Yeah, good idea.
That would be good.
Yeah. And what do they say?
We shall consider.
Which we now know means
no. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Right. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'd like to see 5.4 as well. That'd be great.
Okay, right, yours.
Okay, I've got a question from Albert Palmer, who Albert's a wonderful wedding photographer.
Very good. Yeah.
He says, I'd like to buy a Fujifilm camera for family photos. Ideally, it needs to be small, under $1,000 if possible, but above all, be able to track little people running around. I'm open to it having a fixed lens, but it could be interchangeable. What would you recommend?
Well, straight away, you're going to go for a 100. Can you get a 100F? Can you get that under 1K now? Is it possible? I'm just going to look on MPB, see if there's any. Maybe.
To be honest with you, the key thing about that question was the tracking little people running around.
Yeah.
And the X100 it's good, but the X100V is the one with the new fast lens and sensor. But even that, because of the fixed lens, is not quite as quick as the interchangeables, even though it's the same sensor. I'd probably look at the XE4.
Would you?
So XE4 is the latest sensor, so it's got all of the focus gubbins. It basically is as quick as you're going to get in terms of Fujifilm stuff. I think XE4 is around about £950, something like that. Retail might be a little bit cheaper now because it's been out for a while. Of course, you're going to need a lens as well. So in which case, to keep it cheap and keep it absolutely fast, I would go for 23mm f2, maybe the 35 f2. So you're looking overall about £1,100-1,200 for the package. That's what I would do. XE4.
I've just found a 100V. You can now buy a few pennies over £1,000, but you can get a
new one?
A 100V. No, a used, but a one. No, not a new one. That would be nice.
People who give away their X100Vs, send them back.
Yeah. Well, if you get an absolute like new here, £1,150.
It's pretty good.
It's not bad, is it? Yeah.
Anyway, it's worth every single penny. The X100V.
Yeah.
Love it to bits.
Right, was that your question? It was.
That was mine.
Sorry, It was. Matt Searlt. This could have been planned actually, Kev, because the actual sentence, the actual title, is another bloody X100V question. Hello, chaps, says Matt Searles. Loving the show, yada, yada. Given the questions on the podcast this week, I felt I had to jump in with another X100V. I've currently got a much underused X-H1 in the bag. No small thanks to the GFX 50R beside it. But I'm thinking of the V as an alternative for a bit of video work and using the inbuilt teleconverter, now with RAW compatibility, yay, he says. Who says yay? As a potential replacement for the X-H1. How do the two compare for stills and video, and does the new lens on the V make a big difference? Will the 100V give me all the features of my X-H1 for day-to-day stills and video, or will I have to make compromises compared to the X-H1? Well, the first compromise is going to be the stabilization for video. That's an obvious one, isn't it? And of course, not having the ability to do interchangeable lenses it's not really eggs for eggs in that respect, is it?
No, and yeah, I would say the X-H1, even though the X100V has got a better sensor than the X-H1, the X-H1 is the one to reach to for filming. So you've got all kinds of you've got the in-body stabilization. So 4K recording on the X100 is limited to 10 minutes, for example. So there's the timing issue. You've got your stabilization, and you've got the newer film simulations, which are lovely in the X100V. I don't think in the X100V you're going to be able to use easily anyway external monitors, external recording devices, should you be at that stage. So yeah, I would say X-H1 is better than the X100V for filming.
The ND filter, of course, is really good for when you've got that camera out in stills mode, but I don't believe, I haven't got the X100V, so I don't know, Kev. I'm guessing a bit here. I don't think you can use the ND filter in video, can you?
You can now, yeah. They did a firmware update about 3 months ago that added that, yeah.
Well, there we go. Yeah. Well, there is a good reason. There's something that packs that the X-H1 won't, and that's very useful for when you're filming open wide in bright places. So actually, that's a mammoth thing.
And it's a 5-stop ND filter now, whereas the old X100s were 3 stops. So yeah, I mean that's one of the pros.
Big pro.
But I'd still be, if I was doing any kind of serious filmmaking and I only had an X-H1 and an X100V, it would be the X-H1 I would turn to.
A couple of years ago, when we were allowed to travel before the war, when we went to Croatia for our holiday, you don't get this problem, Kev, because when you go on holiday, the pool is all yours because you stay at a private ranch. But for us, what travel with larger tourist companies, tour operators, we went. It was a wonderful place. Though we went one of these all-inclusives. The boys love the all-inclusives. Went to an all-inclusive, and one of the problems that has is that it's all nationalities, by the way. It's no longer now one nationality before we start going down that dangerous road. Those that put their towels out on the seats in the morning, that drives me nuts. And you have to get up really early, and you have to go. You take your laptop and you sit on and everybody knows you're doing it. You sit on a sun lounger and pretend you're working. I need to catch up on my emails. Yeah, and obviously I do need 4 sun loungers to do that. But I took the X100F down before all those people got. I woke up really early one morning. I put it on one of those little Is it a Joby? What's the one with the anyway?
Yeah, Joby. Yeah.
And I hid it quite well. I must admit I was a bit concerned looking down from my balcony, thinking somebody was going to walk off with it, but nobody saw it. And as the sun came up, I said it manually, as the sun came up and everybody was coming out to grab their sun loungers, I got this great sort of building time-lapse film of all these people grabbing their sun loungers.
Which you'll never be able to put on YouTube because of the privacy police.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kev.
Yeah, so pointless. What a waste of your time.
Yeah, it was a great shot.
Might as well have just stayed in bed and not did anything creative or artistic and just let the privacy police win.
I think we should hear from our next friend of the show. This is Alex Frederickson. You sort of uncover a secret of Alex's during this piece, don't you?
Yeah, she's wonderful. I spoke to her a few times before we did the interview for various other things, and she's got a really interesting backstory and everything else. Yeah.
Well, this is Alex Frederickson.
Now, the people who are in the Facebook group will know very much your work because it's you share a lot of it, and it's amazing. A lot of good stuff coming out of your little Austrian village. So tell us a little bit about where you are and why you're there, and what you're shooting.
Well, I'm originally from the UK, as you know. I moved to Austria 15 years ago, and I live in a small ski resort about 2 hours away from Salzburg. What I shoot, basically anything that's got something to do with people. People have always been my first love ever since I was a small child, particularly people who are shall we say, on the fringes of society in one way or another, and for whatever reason. I trained as a psychiatric nurse when I was 18, and I did that for 7 years. And everything I've ever done since then has been focused on and based around my love of human beings, really. I had a friend who lent me, I think it was a Canon 600D, if that sounds reasonable, because I needed to take photos of the situations that I was writing about. So it was very much at that point words with just one image that accompanied the text. And I had this camera here, and I just thought, let me just go out and see if I can make myself feel better by taking some pictures. So I went into a forest nearby, and I was there for about 3 hours, and it was incredible. Every single click of the shutter brought my anxiety level down just a little bit, and I just never looked back. I like to think that my stories have words and images in more or less equal proportions, or a lot more equal than it was anyway.
So tell me about the intentional camera movement stuff that you do. And specifically, is that born of the fact that in Austria there's restrictions over what you can photograph or what you can show? Kind
of, yeah. I mean, when I first started taking photos, I think I started where probably most people start, with landscape. You shoot what's around you. And after that, I started to feel, okay, where I live is absolutely beautiful, but I need to somehow get back to shooting or taking photos of people. Now, here where I am, is street photography is not allowed. And most people here are very aware of that. And it's very difficult to shoot on the street without, depending on obviously what you're going to do with the photos, but I like to share what I shoot. So there doesn't really seem to be any point to me to actually just shooting and just keeping this images to myself forever and ever. So I decided I needed a way to actually be able to shoot what I wanted to shoot, exactly what I wanted to shoot, but without having any of the added hassle of identifiable people. Now, just to go back a little bit, when I first, after I got over my sort of landscape initial phase, I watched a video by a wonderful landscape photographer who was actually, he introduced me to ICM. So I spent maybe the first few months shooting landscape ICM. And then I thought, I wonder if this is transferable to people. Long story short, it is, but not in the same way. So I kind of developed over the next year or so, I developed very much my own style, which is based around jiggles and squiggles and all kinds of different movements. And also a form of panning where the subject is absolutely not clear. I don't like the sharpness that some people love when they take a panning shot, that everything has to be absolutely sharp. No, for me it has to look like it's an artistic picture. It has to look like I did this intentionally because I did. That brings us also back to then disguising the identity of the person. So what I do is I sit on the street for sometimes hours and just watch people go by and observe what people are doing, how they're looking, what they may be feeling, and I try to actually capture that in the image. So yes, it's partly to do with anonymity, and it's partly to do with, it just makes me feel good to shoot this way.
The results are very artistic. And actually, a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, we talked about this idea of fine art. And we established that the true definition of fine art is when somebody, starts taking pictures with the intention of making an art piece rather than it becoming an art piece as the result of something else. And I think these are pretty much bang on for that. They were some of the modern stuff, or not modern, but some of the latest stuff you've done on your website, Alex Frederickson.art, or some of there's one entitled Complete. And there's one titled Enough. Reminds me a little bit of the painter L.S. Lowry. So his stuff has that kind of little bit of movement in it, and it's very, very, very fine art.
I mean, I read a discussion this week in the Facebook group about this word fine art, and I don't know. I'd never considered what I do to be fine art. Labels are one of my pet hates. And I just think we create what moves us, and we react to what other people are creating, either positively or negatively, and whatever they want to call it, whatever we want to call it.
One of the reasons we're speaking today is to talk about your latest book, which is it's really interesting. It's another take on the anonymous nature of people, I suppose, and it's just about to be published, I believe. So tell us more about it. Tell us about the story behind the new book.
The book is called Feet Under the Seat. Stories from life told by feet on a train. If you go back to the fact that I'm not allowed to shoot faces, I had this idea first by shooting feet on the street. And I did that I think that was quite a lot of time during summer 2019, before we ever knew what was going to happen in 2020. And I think I'd just come from a shoot, and I was sitting on the train going home. And I just sort of started looking at all these feet around me and thought, ooh, this is great. But I never really took it anywhere after that. And then winter came and brought Corona with it. And during then the winter of 2000, so the winter that's just gone, I sold my car during last year, so I was traveling by train continuously, so always. And I started the unusual thing, or the absolutely unique thing about this particular winter, Kev, is you can imagine that I live in a ski resort. There were no tourists allowed during this last winter, which meant that every single person on that train was somebody who lived here. And this is a time that will probably never be repeated in my lifetime. So I started to actually, when people sit on a train, you either playing with your phone, staring out the window, or mixture of the two. Our little train is laid out in such a way that there's quite a lot of room in between the seats, so you can really see what's going on. And I found that most times there was an opportunity to take a photograph under the seat. There was also something happening. So this is not just a collection of feet, it's also stories. So I made it into something where I was actually only shooting the feet of people that had a story connected. One thing that I really, really saw very early in this period was we were in lockdown, the same as most of the world was over January, February, March. And there were a lot of young people there, so teenagers. And whereas we might have craved social contact, I think teenagers, young people need it. It's part of their social development. And what they were actually doing, they were using the train as a place to meet. So I actually witnessed lots and lots of different meetings between these young people. And that covered everything from things that were really, really poignant, things that were funny. I witnessed bullying from both sides, from the point of view of the bully and the person who was bullied, and the sadness of these kids because they had no idea what their future looked like after the school being closed for so long and being on distance learning. They're not being allowed to see their friends, and they didn't know what was going to happen with their exams and their schooling. It was just horrible. And I've always been a person who's absolutely loved old people. I'm a little bit of an old person magnet, and I've never really had any kind of connection to young people. But this changed everything for me. And a lot of the stories in the book are based around the young.
Now, I know the book is as much about photographs as it is about the stories that go with them. Whilst we can't show the picture on the podcast, can you perhaps read out one of the stories for us so we can get an idea?
After almost 7 weeks of lockdown, restrictions were eased here on Monday. Schools reopen after the half-term holiday, and all students wishing to attend face-to-face lessons are required to be tested every 7 days, as well as needing to wear an FFP2 mask on school premises. This is quite a burden to place on young shoulders, and it's one I guess some students will bear so they can see their friends again, whilst others will sigh and buckle just a little more under the weight. This young man is already on the train when I get on, and for the first 10 minutes of our shared journey, I see only his feet on my camera screen. As the train pulls slowly into the next station, he stands up opens the window and looks up and down the empty platform. I'm surprised by his size. He's so much smaller and younger than the impression I formed from his feet. He sits back down with a sigh, and as our eyes meet through the gap in the seat, I ask if he's okay. He shrugs, the universal sign for, no, not really. So I get up and move to the seat across the aisle from him. Spotting the heavy school bag beside him, I ask if it isn't half-term this week. Yes, he says, but I have to have extra tuition in maths, so I've been to see my tutor. I ask how it went and he rolls his eyes. We chat a little about the school and this and that, and I give him my card, telling him I'm hopeless at maths but I teach English, so if he ever needs any help, just to text me. Cool, he says with a shy smile. I'll ask my mum if I can learn with you. The next stop is his, and he hoists his heavy bag onto his back and gives me a wave as he steps down off the train and out of sight. I hope he calls. I can't lighten his load, but maybe I can help him carry it.
No, that's really cool, actually, and I know that I'm really looking forward to seeing the pictures with the stories in the book. Do you get up in the morning and think, okay, today I'm going to go off and specifically shoot for this project, this book, in the last few months, or is it?
Yes. I was taking 2 train journeys a day, every day. There were a lot of days where I thought it was going to be a complete washout, and then at the last minute somebody really interesting got on. So I don't think there was one single journey where I got nothing. Some days, I mean, if you think about it, the train pulls into the station. And there are 2 carriages to choose from, and you know that you can't change carriages in between during the journey. So you get in a carriage, and you've got no idea who's in that carriage, who's going to get in that carriage during the course of the journey. So you never actually know is the best story of this day in the next carriage. It was all a little bit kind of random and chance. Sometimes I chose what I called the night train, which was the last train, which was something like 7:30. It was already dark. And these were people who were coming, the last people coming from work. So I tried to plan days where I knew there was a good chance that I would get something.
You have all of these pictures now in your archive. How did you go about getting the book published? What was the steps involved in actually going from idea to the physical book? I didn't actually set out for this to be a book. That wasn't my original intention. This has got a slight edge to it, that it's mostly about the story and the pictures accompany the story. It could stand alone without the pictures, not the other way around. But then people started to say to me, you need to actually bring these into a collection. This is a unique time in our history. And also a unique time for you because you've got only locals there. So this needs to be a book. So as time went on, I kind of thought, yeah, they're right. And I'm getting to the point now where I've got a lot of stories and a lot of pictures. Okay, let's do this. Let's make it into a book. I just ordered Sean Tucker's 2020 collection. And I really liked the untreated paper that he used and the square format of the book. So I watched his video about how he made the book and then contacted the printer that he used. And I decided that my book was going to be exactly the same square format with exactly the same paper. It just seemed to be a lot more natural, a lot more neutral. I didn't want this to be something shiny. It didn't be a shiny, glossy subject in this particular year. And so it seemed to fit perfectly for me. The book is only black and white for a couple of reasons. The first is I just love black and white. And secondly is that it adds another level to the anonymity of the person. If you can't tell who they are because of the colour of their shoes or their trousers or whatever, it just adds another level of anonymity. And it makes people actually look at the story and the photograph instead of looking at the colours, etc. So all those wonderful reasons why we shoot black and white instead of colour are very valid here. I think it's brilliant that you're actually taking your work and doing something with it, and it is really, really beautiful. So, well done. And I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product, the book. Final question. What would you whisper into the ears of an 18-year-old Alex?
Well, one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't pick up a camera until I was 50 years old. I think one of the things that I would whisper into 18-year-old Alex's ear is pick up a camera, you know. And the other thing would be to do things for me without feeling the pressure of everyone around me to do things because it was the right thing to do, because it made a lot of money, because it's what everybody else was doing, and to go my own way and to have the confidence to just say, no, this is what I'm doing now.
Wonderful advice, and thank you to Alex Frederickson, who was talking to Kev. If you'd like to order her book, we'll leave all the links on the show page today. Alex's site is alexfrederickson.art, and Rickson has the CKSON, and she's just about to place the order with the printer as I say these words to you. So, if you're thinking, that sounds like a project I would like to support and see, now is the best time to make that order. He says, nudge, nudge. And I know you know this, but there might be a few folks who are saying, what's this ICM you've been talking about? Intentional camera movement, which is a genre of its own, really. And I'm sure Alex will be pleased to chat with you about her work in this field too. So, this week on my other show, Photography Daily, I've invited a guest back who's become a reasonably regular contributor, really. The YouTuber and philosophical thinker when it comes to photography and filmmaking, Sean Tucker. He'll be talking about his new book, The Meaning in the Making. It's a read which contains personal stories interwoven with philosophical and spiritual practices that inspire and motivate him to remain a maker of things. It's all about why we make, what we're thinking. And as Sean suggests, the book isn't really just for photographers or filmmakers, but for musicians, painters, writers, anybody who makes anything. We talk about the process of making this book and also his very personal journey of 2020-21 whilst completing it.
I've got a chapter just called Feel, which talks about sort of the emotional side of how we make. And I'm a more rational-brained human being, admittedly, but I know it has to be the balance between our rational mind and our emotional state that we make from if we want to make good things. And if we're weak on one side, we need to work on the other.
That's this coming Wednesday over on Photography Daily. Sean Tucker. For our patrons, there's always, every week, the More edition that comes out. This Thursday, I'm talking about being of service to those you photograph and feeling useful once again. And the book club, we have some words and pictures of inspiration from Tom Stoddart as we look at his book and talk about it, Extraordinary Women. Then Friday, it's the Photo Walk show, which has turned into a kind of meditative walk with words of inspiration from those interviewed on the show in the past and letters from listeners, all about what they see wherever they are in the world and what they're doing and project ideas and. Photography Daily is available via photographydaily.show or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. Next week, Kev, you have... you've got it's not a friend of the show next week, it's...
Spencer Wynn.
Spencer Wynn, that's right.
Yes, Spencer Wynn is absolutely phenomenal photographer from Canada. No, I've been looking forward to speaking to him for a while.
Good. Well, he's going to be your guest next week. When Kev is solo, with Breezy or...
I might get the pink flash
Monty.
on.
The pink flash. Oh, yeah, by the way, during Alex's chat with us a moment ago, Kev said, I've just got to pop out for a second. You've got people bringing you coffee.
Bless him. He stood there waving at the window with a coffee in his hand. It's like, oh, sorry, mate, I'm on the podcast. Come back in 20 minutes.
Oh, is he going to come back?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully. Yeah, because I can share my coffee then.
When do you share your coffee?
Well, not share it, but have a chat over a coffee. The sun is shining beautifully in Malmesbury. It's been November for 5 months. So
could it be summer, Kev? Or by the time this goes out on Monday, we'll probably get snow and hail again.
Probably. I still got my heating on in the studio. We had the fire on last night. We put the logs on the burner.
Blimey.
It's June in a week.
I know. Unbelievable, isn't it? We went
ridiculous.
Last week. Was it this time last week or the week before? Oh, I lose count. we went to a theme park because it was an inset day for Jack's school. And bless him, he'd missed both of his birthdays due to lockdowns. The first one, obviously, March 2020. We went in about 3 days before his birthday. Was it 3 days-ish? And then he missed this year's as well because we were still in lockdown. So he'd missed 2 birthdays and certainly the teenage one. And so on the inset day, we went off to Paulton's Park. But it hailed while we were there.
Oh,
going round on a ride while it is hailing in your face is painful.
Yeah.
I was going around with that pterodactyl hanging thing or whatever it's called, and then the rain coming at you at the other end. You thought, blimey, this is like being on a water ride, but only with needles being thrown at you. Oh, it really was painful. Right, back to your questions.
Okay, I've got one from Howard Belief.
Right.
That's a nice name, isn't it? Belief. Beliff. Probably not how you pronounce it, but there you go. Anyway, interesting question. Burst shooting for street photography can be a touchy subject. Some of my street work is still made with my trusty old X-T1 on AFC and burst mode, with about 3 to 5 frames per subject. The camera is usually low and the flip screen out. I know some might eschew the burst, claiming it's not really true to form, but I find far more missed opportunities when I move the dial back to a single shot. What do you guys think about burst for the street? Am I somehow cheating? I don't always make street photographs this way, but it seems to make a difference with this camera in this environment. He's across the big lake here in Philadelphia. Oh, he's given us his Instagram. Instagram is Taoist Punk. Taoist Punk. TAOIST.
I bet you wish you'd not started that now. You could get in trouble for that one. I do you know what? This is one of those moments where you say, whatever works for you. Isn't it, really? Because there are no rules, and there shouldn't be rules. If that is a system you've found that works, use it. And if it's getting great results, use it more.
Yeah, and don't let anybody say that's not how street photography should be done.
No.
Pick up Magnum's contact sheets, and you'll understand that some of the greatest street photographers in the past would use a whole roll of film to get one shot.
Yeah.
Even Bresson's decisive moment was a mistranslation. It didn't mean the decisive moment. He would shoot, the boy jumping over the puddle, for example.
Yes.
There's a whole roll. So just do what you need to do to get your picture, as long as it doesn't offend the people you're taking pictures of.
That contact sheets book. Have we done that before?
No,
we should do. Have you got it?
I did have it. I don't know. I haven't seen it for a long time though. I don't know. Albie uses my books to make dens.
What?
Yeah, he found this YouTube video, how to make amazing dens in the living room. And it involves basically all my books, and it involves all of anything vertical in the house, like lamps, and Rose's room gets decimated. He steals everything from there.
Oh, but she's not happy
blankets,
about that.
all sorts. And he does. It's like he's built a Bedouin village in the living room sometimes. And he builds it, then he sits in it for 4 minutes, and he gets bored and goes back upstairs to his computer and leaves it.
He leaves it there. Oh, fantastic. But I bet you if you move any of that, when he comes down, he says, what have you done with it? Yeah, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's always Breezy.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Breezy jumped on it. Sorry, Albs.
Yeah. Breezy took it down and put it all in that cupboard over there.
That's right.
Can you believe that? What a clever dog. So if it works for you, do it. And there are no rules. You make your own rules. Talking of which, this is the second question that has dovetailed very nicely, although I am acutely aware that we kind of cover this, well, more than kind of covered this off in terms of how we personally feel about it toward the front end of the show. But Will Collin wrote in, Dear Neil and Kev, listening to your piece on the Doogie Wallace book made me wonder about the rules or laws about publishing photos taken of strangers without their permission. I realise it's a minefield every single time we talk about this, Kev, but sorry if you've answered this one in previous podcasts. We've certainly talked about it. I don't imagine Doogie Wallace got written permission to photograph the guy cling film to a lamppost, for example. In fact, you mentioned that very shot, didn't you, Kev?
I did.
Or many of his other images of people in unflattering circumstances. Yet he's put them on his website, and they're in his book.
Well, yeah, because they were in a public place, so it's fine to do it in this country.
A year or so back, somebody contacted me about one of my public photos on Flickr. The photo was of a woman performing a Maori dance, which I'd taken at a National Trust home, which had been on Flickr for almost 10 years. Somehow, the woman dancer had come across my photo, and she messaged me by commenting on the photo as follows. I've just come across this photograph, which is of me. And notice you also have a copyright label on it. I would appreciate it if you would remove it from your page. You do not have permission to share. Naturally, as I don't want to offend anyone, I just set the photo to private. Problem solved. But what are the rights and wrongs of candid shots of people in the wild? Doogie Wallace's career seems to rely upon it being open season, but is it? Thanks and keep up the good work, from Will Collin.
Yeah, well, so the thing here is it's on National Trust property.
Yes.
And National Trust actually are one of the most specific about rights. And yeah, I think ultimately you probably don't have permission to share that picture if it's on National Trust property. However, that's probably not the woman who emailed you probably didn't know that. So from her perspective, if she was doing her merry dance on Oxford Street, then you would have been within your rights to just say, sorry, I'm keeping it up there. That's never happened to me. But if somebody did do that to me, I would just reply and say, "Oh, look, I think it's a lovely picture. I'll send you a print if you want. It's not doing you any harm." She may come back and say, "Look, I work for the Special Forces or something." I don't know. In which case, then you have a conversation about it. But yeah, so National Trust land. Technically, yeah, you probably do have a little bit of a dilemma there.
But your legal contract there, if you like, is with the National Trust. It's not with her.
True. Yeah, true. However, National Trust are pretty renowned for being pretty brutal about this stuff.
Yeah, I think English heritage
can be
very tricky. There's a castle close to us called Donington Castle, and there's a few Doningtons.
I went to see Guns N' Roses there.
No, this is no, it's not that Donington. There's a different Donington. I wondered if you were going to say that. No, Guns N' Roses have certainly never performed at this particular one. But it is owned by English Heritage, and there used to be a gatekeeper. It seemed there was somebody who looked very officious and sounded very officious anyway. He would come running down the path saying, "You can't take pictures here." If your camera looked anything like you might be doing something of a slightly more professional nature, and he was throwing clipboards at you and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah. But he also says, "P.S. I saw on Wikipedia that Doogie Wallace is now known as Glaswegie." Very apt.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, because there's an American street photographer called Ouija as well, so I think there's a play on that.
Yeah. Right, book of the week time. Book of the week. What have we got? It's you. Oh, blimey! Is that your leg?
It's a big one.
Right.
Not my leg. So this is Belgium. It's just called Belgium by Stefan Vanfleteren. Okay. I reckon I'm good at Belgian. Vanfleteren.
Yes, you're speaking fluent.
Can you speak Belgian?
It's Flemish, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they speak mostly French, though, don't they? But yeah, Flemish.
Okay.
So this book actually was a gift, and this is the one that turned up during the recording the other week, and Harry the postman was like, "There's a parcel for you up the street on the side."
Fabulous.
And it ended up in the butcher's, who then gave it to me. So it's one of the. So this book, right? It was Emily who sent it to me, and
Emily Rachnier.
Yes, of course, because she is Belgiumish. Yes. And
no, she is Belgian.
She is Belgian, yeah. And she said, "Have you ever seen this book?" And I said, "No." And she said, "You must see it. It's wonderful." Yeah. And so I added it on my I've got a little Todoist list of books I'd like to get. So I put it on there and didn't think any more of it because I knew ultimately that, I'm not buying books at the minute. Anyway, so bless her, it turned up. And she said to me before, when we were chatting about it, she said it's one of those books that is just beautiful. Now, all of the text is in French, so the French isn't my best language. Je m'appelle Kevin. Elle s'appelle Neil. Je voudrais 2 bières, s'il vous plaît.
God.
That's it.
Right.
There we go. That's the
That is the extent of your. Yeah.
That's the extent of my French. I think I might have actually just called you a woman by that. Did I say she? Her name is Neil.
Yeah,
anyway.
you did. Yeah.
I picked this book up. I unwrapped it. One of those books that smells beautiful, and I opened it, and it's one of these books that has this. It's a double-edged sword.
Right.
Okay. These types of books. It makes me look and think, oh my God, these pictures are absolutely wonderful, and it also makes me look and think. Oh my God, why am I not taking pictures? Why, these people are doing things, portraits and just landscapes and people. It's all black and white. It's just absolutely adorable. and you kind of look at it, and you look at the pictures, and you think, I need to be doing this. I need to be getting out and shooting and doing more. Of course, I just never do because I'm me. But it is absolutely wonderful. I can't tell you about the text because it is in French, but it's I would say it's a mixture of kind of environmental work. So there's a lot of kind of factories, and there's a lovely picture here of a factory with a graveyard in the foreground, which is kind of paradox going on. On the same page, there's a little old lady in the back of a tractor being dragged along. But really, for me,
what, a little old lady in the back of a tractor being dragged along?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What's going on there? Right.
But for me, it's the portraits.
Yeah.
Honestly, these portraits are phenomenal. And they're generally environmental portraits, so these people are either in their homes or in their workplaces, or whatever.
There's a few in coffee shops and things, aren't there?
Coffee shops, yeah. I mean, we've got some really gritty old men. They're not kind of over-processed. You see that a lot of the times these days, and this isn't particularly like recent work, I would say.
But there's deep contrast. I mean, the blacks are black. It's not a salad of grey.
Correct, but it's not. It's not. The clarity hasn't been dragged up within an inch of its life. For example,
no.
Some of these images are what you would call soft, but this is what's adding the character to them.
Yes.
Honestly, I love the way that the book is designed as well. So you've got. You've got full page spreads. There's a couple of images that I've come across where it goes across the spine, which I don't particularly like, but it is what it is. But generally, the images work really well together in terms of the flow of the book, and you get this real sense of just being there. Really do get a sense of being there. There's a whole series here on this farmer, and he's an old guy. He's a milk farmer. He's got cows. So there's this beautiful picture of him in the cow shed. And he's got a cigarette. It's a semi-silhouette of the farmer. You can see the cows in the background, and he's smoking a cigarette. And then the next picture is of him in his house, which of course, because it's one of those things. His house is just full of junk and material and stuff that he's collected over the years. He's obviously got a pretty bad back. He's like bent in two practically, but he must be in his 80s, 90s maybe, but he's still working. And then there's this picture of him stood looking at a burning. He's burning some hay by the looks of it. And there's this. I can't really tell whether it's raining or whether it's a bead of sweat, but it's dropping right off the end of his nose, which doesn't sound very appealing, but it makes for a wonderful story in the picture. And then on page 157, you've got this real close-up picture of this guy, and he's just sat there holding onto a rail. He looks beaten within an inch of his life. It really is a wonderful, wonderful book. It's one of those ones, like I said, it comes along. I'd never even heard of it, never heard of the photographer. Emily said, you really need to see this, and she was not wrong. This is a really, really inspiring piece of work.
He's a fantastic observationist, isn't he? I was looking at some of his other work, Elvis and Presley, and there's a book that he made called Atlantic Wall, which is all about the sea defences during the war that have been built and that are sliding into the water. And I always find those places fascinating. But he is, isn't he? It's all. I mean, most of the work I've seen of his seems to be in black and white. And you're right; it has contrast without it being HDR'd to death.
It's interesting that I'm looking at these pictures, and of course, it's my old chum nostalgia. I'm looking beyond the pictures. I'm looking at the pictures on the walls. I'm looking at the decorations. And this is old school stuff. These are old times. So you get a sense. It's old telephones, for example. It's old wallpaper. But did you see there was a documentary on BBC4 the other day with David Bailey on BBC4.
No, I didn't see it.
And he was being interviewed. I'm not sure if it's an old documentary or not, but he you know what David Bailey's like. He practically couldn't be bothered to be there. He was not making any eye contact. He was like yes, no answers and stuff like that. And the guy interviewing him said, of course, so photography is all about nostalgia, isn't it? And he said, no. He said, there's nothing to do with nostalgia. It's all about the present and the future. And I was like, okay, fair enough.
It was practically like having him in the room then, Kev. That was weird.
But this book is all about nostalgia.
Oh, it is. Do you know this book is also about the pictures that I'm looking at? It's about escaping the barrier, isn't it? I'm not sure if that's the right phrase, but you've just said it makes you want to go out there and make pictures. A lot of these show that he's a photographer who is able to integrate and make stories and make pictures, and he's got past that barrier, thinking it's a cracking picture there, but no, I can't do that. I can't possibly. No, it's not for me. He's got past that, hasn't he? He's surpassed that many times over.
Yeah, well, we'll hear next week from Spencer Wynn, whose motto is if you want to tell a story of the people, you need to live with them.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Blimey, that's profound.
Yeah. So I'm coming round your house in a couple of hours. I'm going to live with you and Sam and the boys. I don't eat meat. Alcohol's okay, and I like to have my beds fresh in the morning. Is that all right?
It's not a hotel, Kev. Although where have I heard that phrase before? It's not a hotel, Neil. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Belgium is the name of the book by Stefan Vanfleteren.
Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant. It is brilliant. Really is. Just going to put it back over here.
What a lovely gift. what a lovely gift that's now in two parts. Don't go letting Albie make a den out of that one. By the sound of it, no, keep it away.
No, well, this is in the So this one was delivered to the studio in the end by the butcher. Well, I got to the butcher, brought it back to the studio, so it will live in here.
Well, thank God the butcher didn't want to keep it.
Yeah, indeed.
Right. Here's one from Stephen Anker. It's a kind of a bump to the front one, but it's not really a question, so I'll do another one after this. Question. Can you send a signed photo to my wife and play Captain Beaky and Hissing Sid by Keith Mitchell for us on the show?
That was because I found on eBay a print of you, Radio 1 Neil James postcard.
Oh, right.
And I think that's where that's come from. It wasn't signed, though. But the Simon Mayo ones on the same page were signed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Now I get that one. Do you remember Captain Beaky and Hissing Sid? Those in America are thinking, what on earth are they talking about?
Yeah, I do remember.
Look it up on YouTube, that one. Question. This one is from Mark Dell. We might have had a similar one before. I'm usually quite good at putting these into another folder the moment we've done them. So apologies if we haven't, because it sounds like something that we've done in a similar... Oh, let me just read it. Mark Dell. Hi, gents. Great show, yada, yada. I've been asked to shoot a wedding, candid style, with some other shots. As you know, I had to give up weddings, sadly, due to ill health. But the couple of friends of my youngest son, and they're really struggling to find a good photographer for a budget, and that's why they've turned to me. So my question is lenses, really. I'm planning to use my X100V, beast of a camera, he says in brackets, you're right, mainly for bridal preps, and then my son's X-T3. What lenses will be best? I'm thinking of the 56-1.2. I loved using this during my wedding photography. What other lens would you recommend? I've shot over 300, so technique isn't the issue here. Cheers, Mark. Friend of the show. You are indeed, Mark.
He is indeed.
Yes. Well, the 56 is obviously, straight away, if you... 23mm is the one I would suggest, because that's going to give you then that sort of that perfect coupling of what would have traditionally been the 35 and 85mm focal lengths.
Yeah, I'd say 23 probably right now, although I might be tempted to wait for the 18 1.4, which has been released. It's apparently all the lenses are being held in Brexit land. Right. So technically it's available, but it's unavailable because of Brexit land. So I might be tempted. I'm really excited by the 18 1.4.
I know.
I'm going to get that and see if that will replace my 23, because it gives a little bit wider, gives a little bit more storytelling.
But you're going to need to get a bit closer sometimes as well.
You can get a bit closer as well, but also, you can stay where you are and still get more in the frame, which is nice. But without the barreling issues that you might have with something wider like a 16 or 10 to 24. But right now 23 would be the one I'd go for.
I wonder actually whether a future 100 with an 18mm, whether that would float your boat, Kev. See,
we shall consider.
That means no. Computer says no. Right, your question.
I got a question from Joanna McIntyre. My question is in relation to X-RAW Studio. I'd love to know what the chances are of bringing an app version to iPads or Android devices. I've just started doing some editing on my iPad and loving it so far. Would be great if there was a way to work with X-RAW Studio on the iPad too. That is interesting. I thought about this. When I saw that question, I tried to think of the technicalities of why it couldn't be done. I couldn't really come up with any. So for those that don't know what X-Raw Studio is, it's the free piece of software that Fujifilm released to allow you to edit RAW files on your computer, your Mac or your PC, in exactly the same way as the camera would edit them if you were selecting a JPEG recipe or shadows, highlights, clarity, all of that kind of stuff, which you can't quite replicate exactly in native kind of editing software like Lightroom or Capture One. And it's actually being used a lot. So what it does is it has to send the RAW file from your computer, sends it back up the wire. You've got to have your camera plugged into the computer. It sends it back up the wire to the camera. The camera does the processing, and then it brings it back to the computer. So it's a little bit of a laborious route, but it is the only way to do it because you can't get the camera processing engine into the software on the computer. So yeah, I mean, these days, I think iPads and tablets and all that kind of stuff are powerful enough to do this, and you need a particular type of USB-C cable. I think has to be one that has power delivered to it. Right. So yeah, I mean, realistically, I can't think of any reason why they couldn't do that. Whether it would be something enough people would use for them to justify doing it, I don't know. But yeah, that's a good one.
Final one of the week now is from Andreas Noah. This one's been hanging around a while, I think. Dear Neil, dear Kev, please don't give up the Fujicast. We didn't say we were. Let the dogs walk themselves. What was that about? Do you remember that? Did we suggest the dogs were going to do it? We had to walk the... I don't know.
That might have been when we were recording in the evenings and we were drunk.
Well, maybe. What were we saying? Does any of you own or used to own the Instax printers? I'm tempted to get one for quite some time now. I've got the idea of making it a prezi for the kids. That's a good sort of roundabout way of saying that's for me. This will be a good excuse, even my wife would approve of this, and I hope the kids won't stop me from using their printer. Do you have any experience with Instax printers? We've talked about Instax printers before, and you've used them at wedding events, haven't you? Quite successfully, I think.
Yeah, I have actually bought them for my kids as well.
Yeah.
They use them. Rosa uses it. They're great little things. I suppose the main complaint, if you like, about it is that the packs, the film packs are reasonably expensive. I think you're looking at something like 80 pence per print, and the quality isn't. You're not getting lab quality out of these things. But the idea is that it's not meant to be. It's meant to be fun. They're good. They're good.
But the printer you're using at the moment is a Canon one, isn't it? And you...
I got the little Canon selfie thing, yeah, but that's not for going out and stuff. It's a high quality, small format postcard printer.
But the thing I quite liked about that, I remember, was that every time you buy the refills, the paper, doesn't it come with the inks or something?
It does, yeah. It all comes together, yeah.
That's about 25 quid, wasn't it? 22, 25 quid?
The packs are, yeah. The printer's about 150 quid.
You get quite a lot in there for your money or something.
Yeah.
See, I do listen, Kev.
You do, indeed.
I do. That's it for this week. Next week, Kev, it's going to be a bit weird. It's you on your Todd.
Yeah, what will I get up to? When the cat's away, the mice may play. Is that what they say?
Yeah, something like that. I'm going to be very interested to listen to that. I wonder what Breezy will be like at the decks. Breezy. Yes, thank you to Alex Frederickson for being our guest this week. And thank you. If you'd like to send a question in, you are a star. Send it to click@fujicast.co.uk, or indeed you can send them via the Facebook group. How are we doing for questions in that group, Kev?
Yeah, we're running out. We've got a few, but we can do with more. Yeah. Come on, people. Yeah.
Always need more. Thank you to those supporting the show by Patreon. Music is from Blue Wednesday, supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. And of course, do not forget to go look for all the links and the stuff that we talked about in the show notes today on the show page. See you you'll be here next week, Kev. So, like radio, it just keeps rolling on. Good luck, by the way, with your country music. Rolling. Yeah, there we go. There's a country music song.
Yeah, played that last week. Rawhide.
Yes, yeah. Rawhide, one of my favourites. Right, well, good luck with that, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks, Kev. Bye!
The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.